Hi there, this is Andrea Mowry of Drea Renee Knits, and today I'm going to be demonstrating how I like to do my increasing for my newest cardigan and how I do that and then still stay in pattern as that sleeve grows, because we're working these from the bottom up. I drew a little chart so you could take a peek at the stitch pattern we're using. This is one of my favorite stitch patterns. I've used it in a lot of my patterns, and basically all it is an example of broken rib. So every other column is gonna be solid knit columns. So you can kind of see those here in my little baby swatch. So this is knit, knit, knit. Then where it should be your purls, if we were doing actual ribbing, so knit, purl, we break it up by, instead of having a full column of purls, we do every other 2 rows, we change it. So we have knit, knit, and then the next 2 rows we're gonna purl, purl, knit, knit, purl, purl, and we bounce and kind of do a zigzag for where those purls lie. So another way to think of the stitch pattern is it's basically always a knit 3, purl 1, knit 3, purl 1. And as we hop those purls around, we just move which of those columns that they're going to fall into. Another thing that I find really helpful to think about is, okay, whenever I have my group of 3 knits, I know that my next set of purls is going to land right in the middle of those 3 knits. So if I have 3 knits here, I'm going to have 2 purls right in the middle of it every other 2 rows. So that's just some ways to look at the stitch pattern to kind of help you along. I tried to make this extra easy in the pattern where we actually only do our shaping, which for our increases, we are going to be increasing on at the beginning and end of the round with either a right lifted increase, RLI, or a left lifted increase, LLI. And because they land on either round 2 or 4 of your repeat, all you really need to do is look below to stay in pattern. So if you look below and you see a purl, that means you need to do another purl. If you look below and you see a knit, you need to do another knit. So it's not too bad to figure this out and stay in pattern. Now, you're going to notice I'm not working in the round, I'm working flat. I wanted to keep the stitches minimal so that this tutorial wasn't too long to watch. So I'm going to be working all of my increases 1 stitch in from the edge. I have a selvage happening. That is only because I'm working flat, and these increases just won't work properly if I'm trying to do them on an edge stitch. But in your pattern, when you are working in the round, you will do them on the very first and very last stitch of your round, and they'll work just fine for you. But I just wanted to clear up any confusion. I'm doing it here only because I'm working this flat. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to show this first go round holding the working yarn in my right hand, also known as picking or English style. I'm sorry, not picking, throwing or English style. And then the next row, I'll go ahead and switch over to Continental, holding the working yarn in my left hand so you can see it demonstrated no matter which way you like to hold your yarn. All right. So I'm going to get my selvage stitch out of the way. We're not even going to pay attention to that. All right, now we're going to pretend that I am right at the beginning of my round here, and I need to do an RLI, a right lifted increase. So to do a right lifted increase, you are going to insert your right hand needle in through the back of the right leg on the stitch below the stitch that's on your needle. So I just insert my needle tip, and then you just go ahead and lift it right up onto your needle, and you knit that new stitch you pulled up, like so. And then you go ahead and knit the original stitch. And there you go. Really nice, easy peasy increase. That is a right lifted increase, and that is our first one. Now I just need to stay in pattern. So I have a knit stitch. You can look right here. That's a knit, followed by a purl. So I'm going to go ahead and knit and then purl. And I can keep just looking below to stay in pattern, or I also know that it goes knit, 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 purl. So I just did a purl, which means now I have 3 knits. So knit, 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 purl. Did I throw my pattern off? No, I didn't. Okay. Knit, 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 purl. Now I'm going to go all the way to the end of my round to do my next increase, which is a lifted left increase. So remember, we're not counting this stitch for me, that's my selvage. So this is my last stitch. You go ahead and knit it. Now you are going to look at the stitch 2 rows below. So this is your new stitch. That's the stitch you just knit. I need this one. So that's 2 rows below. I go in through the back of the left leg and I place it on the needle and I go ahead and I knit it through the back loop. So I'm going through the back leg and I just go ahead and knit. And that is my second increase. I'm going to work my selvage. You won't need to do that because you're working in the round. And there we go. So now we have to stay in pattern, but we've got a new stitch in here. So one of the easiest ways to do this, we're going to pretend I'm working in the round too. So we're going to go ahead and I like to actually go into the body a little bit to establish my pattern. So here you can see I have 3 knits and then I have a purl, and then it would be 3 knits, and if this was a stitch it would be a purl. So I know from here that after I have 2 purl rows, let's look at this, 1, 2, that is now going to change to knits. So, and as I told you, the 2 purls always land in the middle of 3 knits. So I know that this purl now needs to become the middle of 3 knits. So I can say knit, 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 purl, knit, knit. If I was going this way, again, here's my purl that has to change into a knit and it's going to be in the middle of 3. So knit, knit, knit. This has to be a purl. Knit, knit, knit. This has to be a purl. And I can check myself because I have my full knit columns that will remain knits, but then I have my broken rib purl columns. So this has 2 purls at the top. It now needs to become a knit, but this one has 2 purls down here and then 2 knits. It's ready to be a purl again. So I know I have to purl this. So this is a non-shaping row for me. I'm not adding any increases to this row. I'm just continuing the established pattern. So this is the last one I'm going to do English style, and then I'm going to show Continental. Grab my, and I'm just doing fake in the round right now. So I'm going to go ahead and knit my edge stitch. Okay, let's get in pattern. So again, I know that this needs to be a knit because it had 2 purls already, and it has to be in the middle of 3 knits. So knit, knit, knit. So this one needs to be a purl. So this one's a knit. And do you see we're ending up right here at row 3? Knit, purl, knit, 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 purl. So that's what we're going to be doing. So this becomes a purl. And then we're going to need to knit 3. Knit. There's my 2 purls that now have to become knit, knit, purl. Oopsie. And then 3 knits, knit, 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 and then a purl. Knit, 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 and then a purl. And then we'll just go ahead and knit to the end. There we go. All right, now we are ready to shape. So now I'll show Continental style. So we're not going to worry about my edge stitch because you won't have that in your sleeve. It's just my selvage. A selvage stitch is a extra stitch that you might have in certain patterns for certain reasons. Okay, so I've already established my pattern. So now I need to do my increase. And besides that, I just look at what I did in that previous round and I do the same thing. So you can see there's a purl here. I'm going to purl again. This is a knit. I'm going to knit again. So let's start with our right lifted increase. I'm going in through the right leg of the stitch below the stitch on my needle. I go into it with my right hand needle and I place it onto the left hand needle and I knit it. And then I go ahead and knit the original stitch. And then I'm going to purl. And I'm just following the pattern that's already there. So it's a knit, I need to knit. It's a knit, I need to knit. It's a purl, I need to purl. And I'm going to go all the way to the last stitch of my round. Okay, I need to purl. And here is my last stitch where I need to do my increase. So I'm going to go ahead and knit that stitch. I'm then going to go 2 rows below and lift it up through the back leg and knit it through the back loop. That's it. So there is 2 rows of shaping. Now, the only other thing that I do want to make sure I get to show you, let's see where we're going to land here. Perfect. It's going to be on this next row. I want to show you what will happen if you have a purl and we need to do that increase in that purl. So I'm going to just quickly work across this row. Again, we have to establish our pattern again because we've increased. So here's really the quickest way I like to do it. I find my purls and I know that has to be in the middle of my 3 knits and I just count out from there. So here's my purls. So this has to become knit, 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 which means this is a purl. So purl, knit, 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 purl, knit, 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 and I can follow that all the way down. I'm gonna work my selvage stitch. You can ignore this part. You'll see I'm wrapping this loop. This is just how you pretend to work in the round. So you can ignore that part too. Oops, I double wrapped my yarn. Okay, so I need to purl. And then I'm going to knit 3, which perfectly lands this previous purl right in the middle of my 3 knits, which is great. So now I'm back on track, knit 3, purl. And I just have that new purl because we increased. 2, 3, purl. 2, 3, purl. Purl. 1, 2, 3, purl. Perfect. All right, so let's do some increases when we've got a purl beneath. So I will show this both ways, both increases. The first time I'll show it Continental and then I'll switch and show it English, but it's really the same no matter what hand you hold your yarn in. So I'm just getting rid of my selvage here. Okay, so I need to do a right lifted increase, but I have a purl bump. So it looks a little different, but you work it the same way. I'm just inserting this needle into the stitch below and placing it up on the needle, just like I did last time. And then I would go ahead and knit that new stitch and then knit the original. Let me show that English style as well. So this is the stitch I need to do my right lifted increase. I need to go into the stitch below, the one that's on my needle. I just insert it right into that purl bump and place it up onto my needle. I knit into the new stitch, and then I knit into the original stitch. All right, and now my pattern's already been established for me. So I'm going to go ahead and I need to knit these 3. And then purl 1. And then knit 3. And then purl 1. Knit 3. And purl 1. And we're getting all the way to the end where we're going to do a left lifted increase, and that's also going to be coming out of this purl bump. So here's our left lifted increase. We can go ahead and purl it. Or you can go ahead and knit it. It's really up to you. If you feel like it'll help it look like it's staying in that established pattern better, go ahead and purl. It's really not gonna make a huge difference to the sleeve. So don't sweat it. If you just wanna keep doing it the traditional way of knitting it, that is fine. Now I'm gonna use my left hand needle to go through, not the one I just did, but the one below. And I am going to knit through the back loop. And you can see how by purling that, it does do a nice, kind of maintains the pattern, but it's for such a short moment that you don't really notice it that much in the patterning, especially on the underside of a sleeve where no one's gonna be looking that hard. All right, let's show this Continental as well. All right, I'll show this time I'll just knit it. All right, hold on, let me fix this stitch. It dropped down a little too far when I undid the decrease. There we go. Okay, so this time we are just gonna knit it. And now to do our left lifted, we are gonna go, here is the new stitch, here is the one that we just worked in, and so we go to the one below, we lift it up onto our left hand needle, work it through the back, and that's it. So there we go. And again, I always just find a point where it's really easy for me to see the pattern. So even right here in the middle, I can see I have 2 purls here. I need to change this to a knit. So this is gonna become knit, 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 because it has to be in the middle of 2 knits. So then I know this would be purl, knit, 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 purl, knit, knit, knit. And you can go in either direction, and that is how you stay in the pattern. And remember, don't sweat the small stuff. This is gonna be at the under part of your arm. So if this was in the round, you know, nobody's really looking under your arm that much. So don't worry about it too much. What's really important is that this part stays established over the rest of the sleeve that you do really see. But I hope this helps you make a nice, even sleeve. Happy knitting!